need one more piece of data. You need the NASA-Brookings Institution relationship, an institution just up the street from here. Going back to 1959, when NASA was first formed, it turned to Brookings and created a report called the Proposed Studies of the Implications of Peaceful Space Affairs or Activities for Human Affairs. That's the Proposed Studies on the Implications of Peaceful Space Activities for Human Affairs. It was delivered to the Congress in 1961. It was then made public, and it has several interesting sections, one of which says, while face-to-face meetings with extraterrestrial life will not occur in the next 20 years, wonder how they knew that, artifacts left at some point in time by these life forms might possibly be discovered through NASA's activities on the Moon, Mars, or Venus. Remember, this was written before Apollo was officially announced. It then goes on to say, this again is a blue ribbon panel of distinguished anthropologists, journalists, business people, diplomats, scientists, physicists, a creme de la creme. You can read Brookings on the web for yourself. You can go to enterprisemission.com. We have a copy there. It's available in the Library of Congress. It's a little thick book, about 300-400 pages, covering all facets of NASA's activities in the out years, including a section beginning on page 216 referring to extraterrestrial life. It said in the report, anthropological files contain examples of societies which have disintegrated when they had to associate with previously unfamiliar activities, or societies espousing different ideas and different life waves. Others that survived did so by paying the price of changes in values and attitudes and behavior. Then it called for studies that might help provide programs for meeting and adjusting to the implications of such discoveries, questions might wish to ask, how the information might be distributed, or, and this is critical, or withheld from the public. We're talking NASA, remember? A civilian, purely scientific agency. Why in anybody's right mind, if you discover extraterrestrial life, or ruins, or artifacts, or technology, or evidence that we are not alone, and interesting evidence that maybe we are connected, why would you want to question the idea of making it public? They did so back in 1960, 59 and 60. And finally, they asked what the role of discovering scientists and other decision makers might be. Now, I find this absolutely staggering, because it means we're looking at the beginnings of a plan to, if they found it, they would hide it because in their minds, we can't take it. And that line came from A Few Good Men. Now, the New York Times, for December 15th, 1960, reported, mankind warned to prepare for possible life in space. Brookings Institution report says Earth civilization might topple if faced by race of superior beings. As someone said, Riley, that's all they wrote. This is everything we need to establish a prima facie case that if they would ever find the Holy Grail, which every American thinks NASA is looking for, oh, life, there's got to be life. We're looking for life. We're spending billions and billions of dollars looking for life. No, they are not. They are taking our money. They are claiming they're looking, and when they have found it, they have hidden it because by law, they are obliged to hide it if it is deemed a risk and threat to national security. And Brookings says it would be the ultimate threat to national security, the destruction of civilization. Now, that is the model. That is the theory. What is the data that goes with that theory? Well, there are 12 guys that have walked on this extraordinary place, the moon, 30 plus years ago. The last one left. We then turned our national attentions to this technology. This is the incredible thing called the shuttle, which has killed 14 sterling patriotic Americans, has cost untold billions of dollars, does not take us anywhere near, safely anywhere near the moon, because we abandoned the moon and all those dreams that were talked about in the major media over 30 years ago. And all we have done with this very expensive place called ISIS, the International Space Station, which goes around and around and around the Earth, all we have done is go endlessly to nowhere and spend billions and billions and billions. We have spent something like over $500 billion over the last 30 years going nowhere. Certainly nowhere near this place. It is our contention that the reason for that is because of what is waiting there, which makes it all the more interesting, surprising, even shocking, that in the middle of President George Bush's war on terror, in January of 2004, the president suddenly announced a plan to go back to the moon, spread human presence across the solar system, and to do it with existing programs, personnel, and technology. In other words, Apollo, as Mike Griffin, the current head of NASA, said in September of 2005, on steroids. We're in the 21st century, we're 40 years after Apollo, and we're basically reinventing the same wheel to go back to the moon in a new race with a whole bunch of other people, we'll get to in a minute, and the question, of course, is why? Our answer, our Enterprise mission answer, is that the other nations on this planet with which we share this small globe have now, over those 40 years, developed the technology that they can go to the moon, they can find out independently what is there, they can come back, they can make it public, they can use it, they can utilize it, exploit it, back engineer it, and that is why we are suddenly going in the middle of the war. And then Brookings comes in again. What will be the role of the discovering scientists? Well, you can ask the question, what will be the role of all those other scientists and all those other nations when the Japanese and the Chinese and the Indians and the Russians all discover what we know is there? The most interesting thing that happened during George Bush's announcement of Apollo 2, of his vision for space exploration, is when he turned graciously, as you see here, and introduced Gene Cernan, the last human being to walk on the moon, commander of Apollo 17. Now, you'd expect after decades of talking to everyone that would listen, including members of the press, that we had to go back to the moon. We had to reinvigorate the program to go to the moon. You would think that Gene Cernan would have been overjoyed that morning that a president of the United States was standing there at NASA headquarters and announcing we were resuming the clock. The countdown was resuming. We were going back. We were going to go back now to stay, to go to Mars, go on, look at the rest of the solar system, permanent habitation. Instead, this is Gene Cernan that morning. Why is he unhappy? We hope to show you before this morning is out. Okay, if I was a prosecutor making a bill of indictment, I would say that NASA has the legal means of keeping secret all the good stuff, all the important stuff, because of the actual codes in the Space Act of 1958. It has the motive, which of course is Brookings' dire warnings of the possible collapse of look, when you're warning against the collapse of civilization compared to terrorism, there's no comparison. Civilization takes precedence. So if we're all a Twitter and all agog about, FISA and eavesdropping on everyone now because of a handful of guys running around, with bombs and things like that, which can at most kill a few people, as horrible as that is, it does not threaten civilization. What would the government's position be if it is told by a distinguished blue ribbon panel, if you make this public, you will kill civilization on this planet? Obviously, you would keep that information secret, which we believe, based on the evidence, is what they have done.